Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan. You love him, you hate him, you gotta live with him, as he's got the largest podcast in the world. Joe Rogan is problematic, to say the least. Not so much in his own political views, of which he doesn't really have many, but he has a tendency to platform some pretty shitty people. For example, this brain-dead, subhuman TERF named Abigail Schreier, of which we're going to cover today. This is the video we're going to cover. So, we're not going to watch the whole stream, because, I mean, no. But we'll get into some of the arguments that she makes, and we're going to talk about the effect that Joe Rogan has on the world by platforming these people. So let's go ahead and hop right into the memes, okay? Is this 1080p? Thank you. All right, there we go. Alrighty, hit me up, Mr. Rogaine. God, his little logo here is kind of unsettling a little bit, like the third eye and the face he's making. It's kind of unsettling. I'm not gonna lie. Oof.
Hello, Abigail. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me on.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Imagine being trans and this being the last thing you see before you die. Can you imagine that? At least she's not British, right? I was expecting her to be British whenever I first clicked on this to see if this is something I wanted to cover. I was like 90% sure she was gonna be a Brit bonger, okay? I was pretty fucking sure, alright? I really do hate TERFs. I really do, and we're gonna get more into TERF rhetoric later when we cover Sargon, because we're covering Sargon's video on Lindsay Ellis and the death of the author and J.K. Rowling and all that shit. TERFs are a fascinating creature, because they claim to be feminists that care about women's rights, and yet not only is their feminism, just by virtue of its definition, the type of feminism they adhere to, not real feminism, because it's exclusionary of trans women, who are women. Not only that, but it is fundamentally conservative in nature. TERFs don't care about liberating women from gender expectations or anything like that. They really don't care about that. They don't care about any of the traditional feminist goals of, like, liberating women and men from patriarchal bullshit, right? That's not what TERFs care about. TERFs hate men, unironically. TERFs are, like, the textbook man-hating feminist wrapped up in a different packaging, right? When you think of, like, the stereotypical man-hating, like, ball-busting feminist, you generally think of, like, the purple-haired SJW you see on all the SJW cringe compilations from 2016 and 2015 in the Gamergate days, when in reality, man-hate, in most cases, comes from pantsuit-wearing, well-dressed, generally British, wealthy white women who are TERFs. And they extrapolate their hatred of men to trans women because they associate their hatred of men so much with penises that they end up associating penises with men. And trans women tend to have penises, and so their hatred of men translates to trans women. That's generally the line of logic that we end up seeing. So we're only going to watch the first few minutes of this because I think that's all that's really necessary to figure out what kind of person... Actually, no, let's see what this Abigail Schreier person is. Let's see her rational wiki if she's got one. Please tell me this chick has a rational wiki. Please! Ah, yes. So, Abigail Schreier is one of the main proponents of the unsubstantiated conspiracy theory that has been repeatedly torn apart by the scientific community, the myth of rapid onset gender dysphoria. That's why it's called controversy here, because it's just not real. It's not a thing that happens. The idea of rapid onset gender dysphoria has been debunked repeatedly. It's not a thing that exists. More or less, the idea of it is that oh, of course, Riley Grace. Yeah, welcome to the stream, by the way. The idea of rapid onset gender dysphoria is a conspiracy. Let's go ahead and read the first paragraph, okay? Rapid onset gender dysphoria, or ROGD, is a controversial neologism which describes an alleged social-mediated subtype of gender dysphoria. Brown University School of Public Health assistant professor Lisa Littman created the term to describe surveyed parents' accounts of their teenage children suddenly manifesting symptoms of gender dysphoria and self-identifying as transgender simultaneously with their other children in their peer group. So, this is the problem. The entire basis of this fucking myth of rapid onset gender dysphoria stems from a survey that was done online on the internet that surveyed parents of children that apparently allegedly had this rapid onset gender dysphoria. They didn't ask the kids. They didn't study these kids. They didn't do any like trials or any like the scientific method was not taken here at all. It was an online survey done among parents of children, where they asked the parents. That is where this comes from. And this like rapid onset gender dysphoria thing is cited by transphobes all the fucking time. Never fall for this. Never let a TERF or any kind of transphobe in a debate or in an argument or in any scenario try to go for the rapid onset gender dysphoria angle, because it's been debunked and is not proven, even close to proven. Like the methods through which they discovered this, in quotes, have been ripped apart. They did not follow the scientific method. It's complete bogus. Nobody takes it seriously. So keep that in mind.
How are you?
Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me on.
Irreversible damage, the transgender craze seducing our daughters. Boy.
So, let's talk about the fact that Joe Rogan had a woman on his show who wrote a book like that. Transgender craze, what was it? Seducing the minds of our daughters. We're 12 seconds in. That is the title of her book, and they brought her on. I remember when I did my video talking about Joe Rogan a couple weeks ago, people were like, well, Joe Rogan just signed a Spotify contract, so I don't think he's going to be having these really controversial, far-right, bigoted people on his show anymore. I think it's going to be way better from now on. And then a week later, we get this lady on here who has literally written a book that more or less says in the title, transgenderism is like a cult that is like indoctrinating people, right? So that's pretty funny, right? Everybody who tried to argue that, blown the fuck out, I suppose. But let's go ahead and see what Joe Rogan has to say about this, because Joe Rogan is not very principled on most issues.
That's a hot button subject, right? This is a minefield.
It shouldn't be, though.
No?
It really shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't be, but so I think we should probably establish some things like up front, right? Some people surely as adults are transgender.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. I interviewed a lot of them.
And
don't believe a word this lady says, okay? TERFs are some of the most intellectually dishonest people on Earth. If you were to dig down, I imagine it might come up later, but just to get it out of the way here, this is the equivalent of J.K. Rowling talking about how she's talked to like trans women and sympathizes with trans women with how they are victimized by the patriarchy, okay? She doesn't actually see trans women as women. She doesn't think they're valid. This lady 100% thinks that trans people are mentally ill degenerates, especially trans women, trying to like weasel their way into women's spaces so that they can take advantage of like trust and whatnot, okay? And overpower women and whatnot, and like destroy what it means to be a woman. I guarantee that's what this chick believes, okay? Never, ever take a TERF at their word, okay? You have to use inductive reasoning with these people. You have to look at what they say. You have to look at the kind of stuff they advocate for. You have to look at the content they produce. You have to look at the company they keep, and you have to inductively reason based on their actions what they actually believe. Because these people, just like Nazis, are never fucking honest. They are never honest. You can never take them at their base at their word. You have to look at the content of what they say and what they advocate for. You cannot. You have to. You have to dig deeper than just what they say, okay?
We fully support that.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
I have friends who fall into that category.
I have transgender friends, so I can't be transphobic.
Your concern is about very young children.
That teenage girls has nothing to do with adults who are transgender. Okay, many of whom are amazing people. They, went through mental health, therapy, and they decided
Don't take this person at base level. You know why I don't trust this person? So, okay. Let's take a very innocuous statement, okay? We're going to take a very innocuous statement, okay? Also erased all context from this, okay? This is standing on its own in a vacuum, okay? Tell me if this is a problematic statement. I am worried that there is a possibility that a non-zero amount of transgender, or the amount of children, could think that they might be transgender and may take steps to transitioning that may not be reversible, and later on in their life reconsider and possibly find that it's a mistake. And I'm worried that could be a possibility. That on its own is not really problematic. I really don't think so. I don't think the concern that there could be steps that could be taken by someone who is younger into towards being trans that aren't reversible could happen. They could later in their life regret it, right? I don't think that concern on its own is problematic. The problem is that concern should stop being a concern probably about 15 minutes into doing some research about these issues. Because guess what, guys? It's really not something worth being worried about. There are not really any situations in which young people are going to take steps that are irreversible in terms of being trans. Or irreversible and may regret it in the future, right? It takes a lot of time, especially here in America, especially in the UK as well. So detransitioners exist. They do. And it definitely doesn't help their case that they always end up being anti-trans advocates, massive bigots later on in their lives. What's that old wrinkly fuck's name? God, I hate that piece of shit. What's his name? The ex-transitioner or the detransitioner dude who's now an open anti-trans advocate now. What's his name? Fuck, I forget what his name is. Yeah, he's from the RT documentary. Fuck, I hate that piece of shit. Because he's such a scumfuck. Buck Angel's a trans dude. No, it's not Buck Angel, guys. What's his name? Fuck. Deborah Cohen? No. Fuck, what's this dude's name? Hold on, I'm gonna check, okay? I'm gonna check. RT detransition.
10, 9, 5.
He brought her to the man.
I'm pretty sure it's this person. I'm pretty sure it might be this person. Walt, yeah, Walt, fuck, his name's Walt Heaver, I think it is? Walt Heaver, right? That's his name, right? Yeah, his first name's Walt. Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. Yeah, piece of shit. Fucking, he sucks, okay? Alright, never mind. Alright, but, so the reason why I brought this up is, when you consider the context of the kind of stuff this lady advocates for, and the fact that there is really no actual, substantial, real danger of, kids transitioning to another gender, or taking steps that are irreversible when it comes to transitioning, when you consider the fact that this isn't a realistic, thing to be worried about, that's when saying, oh, I'm fine with trans people, I'm friends with trans people, I think adult trans people are fine, that's when we have issues, okay?
They made this decision. They suffered with discomfort in their bodies from the time they were young. And as adults, they made a decision to transition. Fully support them. Has nothing to do with my book.
What?
She's lying right now for publicity, okay? Joe Rogan does not know how to respond. He does not know how Joe Rogan does not know how to responsibly platform and argue against the beliefs of the people he brings on his show, generally speaking. Unless it's I don't know, maybe someone who's opposed to legalizing weed or something, right? This woman is lying her ass off, I guarantee it. Because a lot of what people do when they go on Joe Rogan's channel is they attempt to humanize themselves as much as possible, okay? They try their best to make them seem very approachable and very reasonable and like somebody that you could have a beer with, right? Or smoke some weed with. That's what Joe Rogan does with these people generally. He'll smoke some weed with Elon Musk or Alex Jones or whatnot, That is where the issue arises. She's lying here.
was the motivation to write this book? And
I
if
hate
it's
it.
about teenagers, why is there a very young girl on the cover?
Well,
Because this is like the cover. It looks like
A little girl.
4-year-old.
Right, it does. I mean, obviously I didn't do the cover, but I think the cover is very good because I think it's supposed to evoke what we've lost in a whole generation. Well, yeah,
What is that?
I assume her uterus.
Oh, it's just
Infertility
crazy.
is
Looks
what's
like a pillow.
Yeah,
Oh, infertility. The
yeah,
big
that's
circle.
what
Right.
happened.
So this is like her trying to worm out of, it's clickbait. It's basically like clickbait in the form of a book, you know? It's book clickbait is more or less like what she did, and she's trying to get out of that here. I can applaud Joe Rogan for like how hard he's trying to. I can tell Joe Rogan is being very slow here because he knows that like who he's arguing with is probably pretty bigoted towards trans people, and I don't think Joe Rogan hates trans people. I think I think he is criminally undereducated on trans issues, but I genuinely think that he doesn't want he doesn't want to irresponsibly platform this person, but he just doesn't have the ability to argue against the shit that she's saying, right? Like I genuinely get that feeling from Joe Rogan.
I mean, I got involved in this. This wasn't a personal issue for me. In fact, it was an issue originally I thought I was going to avoid. A reader wrote to me. I write most often for the Wall Street Journal, and a reader wrote to me, and she said, listen, I've tried to get every mainstream journalist to pick this up. No one will touch it, but my daughter got caught up in this. All of a sudden, she went off to college. All of a sudden, with her friends, she had a lot of mental health issues, anxiety, depression, and all of a sudden, with her group of friends, they all decided they're trans, and she went on hormones, and this is happening to parents all across the country, teenage girls.
Her college-age child, her college-age kid went to college and just decided they're trans because their friends were. Let's I'm gonna take a wild guess and say this is probably what happened. What probably happened, teenage, you know, okay, yeah, their age ends with teen, but they're like 19, you know, 18 or 19, okay. So, this is very common. All right. Let's say you're somebody who. Also, by the way, this person is like arguing for like the rapid onset gender dysphoria thing, which has been debunked. It's not a thing. It's like it doesn't exist. So let's go over how like bad of an example this is really fast. Let's acknowledge this. So for one, it is possible that this kid, we'll just say kid, or at this person was already considering transitioning. It was already experiencing gender dysphoria and the symptoms of it, and went to college and found that free of their parent, who is clearly transphobic. I mean, they wrote a fucking thing to this TERF and then on that TERF journalist person to write like an article about it, right? So clearly is openly transphobic. You can probably kind of intuit that. Once they got away from their transphobic family, then they decided to start their transition. They'd already been feeling it for a while. It's possible that they were feeling some of the symptoms of gender dysphoria for a while, but were second-guessing themselves, but then came across a friend group at school that were also trans or were also undergoing the symptoms of gender dysphoria, and together kind of realized, yeah, we're trans, and then came out. Like this happens all the time. This is not like a like I don't agree with the framing of this because I guarantee this has just been there is no evidence to support the idea of rapid onset gender dysphoria. I can't take this by I mean just by the fact just by the fact that this parent sent a letter to this columnist who is openly transphobic and advocates against transgenderism about how she's upset that her child is transgender, that alone makes me think that this mom probably isn't somebody that that this kid would have felt comfortable coming out to trans as. You know, like I think like right off the bat, that's like, you know, the impression that I get.
All of a sudden deciding with their friends that they're trans, wanting surgeries and hormones and getting them. And at first I thought, I don't need this.
I'm sorry, you're not getting hormones and surgeries and getting them unless you are actually this is done at the discretion of medical professionals, okay? I'm sorry, this just isn't a thing that happens. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's not a thing that happens. There isn't, like, you don't go to the doctor. God, show me one example of, like, a fucking trans woman that goes to the doctor and says, hi, I'm trans. Oh, yeah, okay, here's your hormones. Stay on these for a few months, and we're going to schedule a your bottom surgery, and you're going to get some breast implants and all that. It's going to be fucking in and out, you know, 5-minute transgenderism, okay? I show me one example of that happening. It doesn't happen. This is done at the discretion of medical professionals. This just isn't an issue that actually happens. In and out, 5-minute trans.
And so I tried to get another journalist to take it up, a real investigative reporter. I'm not. I'm an opinion journalist usually. You know, that's what I've done. And I couldn't get someone to take it up.
Because it's such a...
Why do you think an actual investigative journalist wouldn't pick up the story? Why? Let's actually imagine, like, how this would go. Let's imagine her. Hey, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Investigative journalist. So listen, I got a letter from a mom who is upset that her mentally ill daughter or son, I don't know, a mentally ill offspring went to college, and their friend group suddenly just decided to become trans, and now they think that they're trans, and I think this could be a very interesting thing for you to look into. And like the investigative journalist is like writing on some paper, like writing some important document, is like, what? Yeah, I think that this is really something interesting, and you really need to look into this, like, this honestly, it's like a pandemic of the transgender agenda that is seducing our children in this country. Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to leave my office. I need you to get the fuck out. That's more or less how I imagine that conversation going down, okay? By the way, those are cotton pads for using stringent on my face. See this stuff? This is actually really good. Guys, if you sit at your computer all day and you get, like, sweaty and greasy and shit like that, having some good-ass astringent and some cotton pads to, like, wipe your face down and everything, real nice. Real nice, okay? Helps keep my skin nice and clear. But yeah, so the reason why I'm gonna guess that the only person that was willing to talk about this as a fucking opinions journalist is because nobody in the medical community, in the scientific community, and the fucking journalistic field takes this shit seriously. Because the very concept of rapid onset gender dysphoria is not backed up by any science. The scientific method was not used to sort of birth this conspiracy theory into existence.
A minefield, because...
Yeah, because it's a minefield, because for some reason the activists who are not representative of
trans activists. Guys, listen to me right now. Look me in the eye and promise me you'll do this. Never let a transphobe or anyone you suspect of being a transphobe get away with with saying trans activists, okay? Trans activists is a dog whistle for anyone who is trans and speaks out about trans issues, okay? That is a dog whistle, okay? Never let them get away with it. Trans activist is a fucking dog whistle. Never, ever let these people get away with it.
Transgender adults that I've met at all. But the activists had convinced the world that because, they object to anyone's transition being questioned, we can't talk about a mental health issue facing teenage girls.
Now, I've heard...
There's no science, no studies, no nothing to demonstrate this is actually an issue. What this is a bored TERF who is too cowardly, I suppose, to attack. Or maybe it's because she's American or Canadian. Like, I know she's definitely not British. Maybe if she was British, she would be more open to condemning, like, adult female TERFs as well, or adult female trans women as well. But here, it seems like American TERFs and like non-European TERFs focus a lot of their rhetoric on young trans people, okay? That seems to be overwhelmingly the case. So, yeah, I don't trust her here. Wait, so Emmy wants to debate? They're like a TERF or some shit? All right, I'll fucking debate them. Just let me finish this video.
There's an issue with some teenage girls who are on the spectrum who wind up getting sort of roped into this idea that that's what's wrong with them. Is that one of the things you cover in your book?
Yeah, I actually don't.
This has not been demonstrated to be an actual real issue that's happening. I'm going to be honest with you guys, there's no evidence for this.
don't deal with that specifically very much. And the reason is that's a whole book in and of itself. Because a lot of it is true that a lot of girls who are high functioning autistic, and I did interview some experts in autism, and that's when I realized that's a book of its own, which is that a lot of girls who are high.
Then why are there no like actual studies or like essays coming out from like peer-reviewed scientific journals talking about this phenomenon? If this was an actual thing that was happening, I promise you this would be out all the time. There's this conspiracy theory passed around among like fascists and alt-righters and whatnot that the medical or that the academic community is super like what's the word I'm looking for? Super closed-minded, and they shut down anyone they disagree with. I'm sorry, this just isn't true. The academic community loves disagreement. They fucking love disagreement because everybody that do the studies and make these and do all this shit, they need to have disagreements to incentivize them to do studies and experiments and procedures and all of that, and they get their pay through grants, okay? The more disagreement there is, the more grants they get, which allows them to do their job and make breakthroughs and scientific discoveries, and it's how they get their pay. It's what their job is. Their entire field doesn't operate properly without disagreements happening within the academic community. This like weird conspiracy theory that the academic community shuts down anyone who disagrees and doesn't fall in lockstep with the consensus is so fucking wild to me because it just doesn't line up with reality. It really doesn't. But I want to get to this debate with this Emmy person really fast. So we're gonna finish up this segment right here. Joe Rogan is not capable of responsibly platforming these people. When he platforms these ideas, it causes demonstrable harm to the world, okay? How many views does this have? 1.7 million views in 4 days. How many people, look at that like to dislike ratio too. How many people came out of this never having been exposed to these transphobic ideas before, that now feel like there may be like preconceived transphobic like biases that they have been validated by somebody who they think holds a position of authority in which they are able to authoritatively speak on this issue? How many do you want to guess? He causes demonstrable harm to discourse. So yeah, fuck it. Let's debate a TERF.